topic on the list is United Health Group, okay, which I'm sure a lot of us, if you are an employee, your employer probably goes with United Health. United Health Group says it will be leaving Obamacare exchanges in all but a few states. The nation's largest health insurer says it's been losing too much money on the plans created by, guess what? The Affordable Care Act. The company has been selling the health plans in 34 states, but the CEO says next year they'll remain in only a handful. What do you think about that?
I don't know what to think. I don't know if Affordable Care Act or Obamacare is working or not, because I've heard it both ways. And there's also the prospect, which we're going to ask our guest, there was a provision in the Affordable Care Act, as I understand it, that would essentially hold harmless or reimburse the insurance companies if, for participating in the Affordable Care Act, if they lost money, then the American taxpayer would make up those losses. So really they stood only to make money and not to lose money, if that's as I understand it to be. Not unlike what happened in Wall Street, where they privatized their, at least 10 years ago, they privatized their winnings and they socialized their losings. The losings? All right, let's put our man on the air. I got the wrong screen up. Danny O'Connell is a health insurance expert and a partner at a company called BRG, which is, can I call you a financial services and planning company in the Metroplex area?
Yeah, really we're more of an insurance brokerage, serving mostly North Texas, but we've got people all over the country.
Okay, so you actually have to deal with this Affordable Care Act stuff.
That is what I live. I'm the village idiot. I interpret that and figure out for people how to navigate it.
Well, the article is United Healthcare is slashing its participation. Let me look down here. They're going to limit heavy losses. They expanded to 34 states this year. They're going to pull back to a handful by 2017. They covered nearly 800,000 people through the end of March, or about 6% of all the people who signed up for coverage under Obamacare for this year in the public exchanges. Now, as I understand it, the exchanges, I still am not sure if I understand all this, to be candid. If you couldn't or didn't have a policy either through your employer or on your own, typically for expense reasons, then you could go to these online markets and decide which of the plans you liked and sign up for it, and there would be, the government would give you money in some cases so you could afford the insurance. Is that right?
Well, there's so much confusion around this, and these terms are so interchangeable. An exchange is nothing more than an online marketplace to shop. So I could go open an exchange, you could, the federal government has, obviously we know healthcare.gov, right?
Yep.
So although it was a place to go purchase, and the idea behind this was they knew the cost was going to go up. So they said, what we're going to do to combat that rising cost is we're going to offer subsidies to people of certain income levels, and that's going to be, the scaled tier based how many people are in your household and how much money, you bring into that household.
And this is the great underwriting of healthcare expense, which was to be combined with essentially forcing everybody to buy the healthcare.
So you have to be careful, and this is where that line gets really blurred. This isn't doing anything with healthcare expense. This is only helping subsidize a health insurance premium. Two totally different things, but unfortunately, I think in our country, we really blend that. And I'll give you a good example. So now, somebody making $28,000 a year, I can go out and get premium assistance for, this bronze level plan that may be $6,000 deductible, typically an HMO network, very limited providers. But my insurance cost may be $20 to $30 a month. So now that's more affordable.
Yeah.
However,
I want that plan.
However, when I go to see the provider, now I'm going to be charged $90 for a sick visit, and I don't have that $90. So does that plan really do me any good?
That's your bad luck, and you're rocking a new iPhone 6, so you can't.
So there's choices there, but that has more to do with the actual expense of healthcare versus the cost of the premium of a health insurance plan.
I never understood the theory I'm being serious again. I never understood the theory, which is that by expanding health care to everybody, including those who can't afford it because it's so wretchedly expensive, we will bend the cost curve down. The only way I could see that happening, which is what they didn't say, Mr. O'Connell, was that once we got everybody hooked up, we got them over a barrel and we're going to cut reimbursements or demand that they cut reimbursements, which I guess they could do. No? Did I have that right or wrong? I never understood how this is supposed to work. You put more people, too much money chasing too few goods leads to inflation.
Here was the theory. So let's say that 30% of the population is not using this consumer good, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if we enroll them in the plan and we start collecting premiums from them, meaning they're paying into the system, or even 15%, even half of those are paying in, we've got more money going in, and we're expecting the same utilization, which is patently false. Anytime that we work with an employer, they've never had a benefit plan, you put insurance in the first year, utilization goes through the roof because people haven't had it, now they're paying for it, they want to go out and use it. Mm-hmm. But the other part of the failure of this is that people can no longer see providers and they have very limited access. I had a young lady that opted to enroll in an individual policy instead of her spouse's because it's too expensive. She was in her 20s. She got diagnosed with skin cancer. She lived in Fort Worth. The only oncologist in the entire network, there was one, and it was in Dallas. So she had to drive an hour from her home to go seek treatment.
So, why is that? Why don't they have bigger networks of doctors?
So the biggest issue really comes back to the provider level. Being the federal government mandated that if you go sign up and get on a health insurance plan, whether you pay that premium or not, that insurance company has to verify benefits for you for 90 days. And so we have a lot of clients who are doctors and providers, and that they're doing one of two things. They're either calling that patient and they're calling and verifying benefits, and they're finding out that that patient is not paid up to date. So they're calling the patient back and saying, we'd love to see you, but we need to get you paid to current, and you need to pay your insurance before we can see you.
And they can do that legally. Because that was one of the concerns was people would be using the insurance, not paying the insurance, and then nobody's going to get paid.
Which is exactly what happened. And so then the other side are saying, we're just not even going to mess with this. We're just not accepting those plans.
Well, yeah, they can pick and choose. I mean, they're restricting their market, then they're restricting their income.
Hypothetically, but if they're seeing somebody and not getting paid for it, that's opportunity cost. That's loss.
Okay.
How often does that happen?
It happens on a regular basis.
So when doctors are looking at seeing patients, but they're not getting paid for it.
Yeah, that happens more than what we like to talk about.
Have they developed the information about how many people are new sign-ups for Obamacare who then do not pay their monthly fee and then they drop it or it gets dropped?
In 2000, and I've got the numbers for the first year. In the second year of 2015, I've got the total number of sign-ups, but I haven't been able to get it broken down to that. In 2014, when you look at it, 8 million signed up, 6.5 million had prior coverage. Mm-hmm. So those people probably aren't signing up and then dropping it, typically, correct? So you've got 1.5 million new enrollees. Yeah. 700 of those, their policies were canceled at the end of the year due to citizenship status, meaning they weren't here legally. And then 50% of those who qualified for a subsidy in the first year actually owed money back to the IRS off of their subsidy. So you're looking at net.
I had to pay back.
400,000 or something?
I had to pay a fine. I was really upset, but I had to pay a fine.
Well, that wasn't even a fine. I'm not even talking about the fine. I'm talking about people who went out and bought insurance. The government said, we'll give you $200 towards your plan. And at the end of the year, they said, oh, whoops, we're only going to give you $100, so you owe me $100 a month back.
Oh, man. That's
stupid,
Danny, because this was aimed at people who didn't have the
money.
So how just to be clear, I thought this was just the stupidest idea in the world for a variety of reasons. Not because I want people without insurance to suffer and die, but how then can I read in some journals that this has been a great success?
Well, of course, the side that passed it is going to say that. And the funny thing is, when you talk going back to this United Healthcare issue and then pulling out, there's a great quote in here from Ben Wakana, the spokesman for DHSS, saying that, we openly expected there to be changes and adjustments in the early years with issuers both entering and exiting states. That's patently false from what we were told. We were told more plans, more access. You can go across state lines and do all these wonderful things. It's going to lower everybody's cost, a family, by at least $2,500 a year. None of that has proven or come to pass.
The president has now said that lowering health care costs $2,500 a year is in the future, correct? Hasn't he modified that? Now, I'm not saying I think that's not stupid as well, but hasn't he wiggled out of that by saying, well, we didn't promise it right away?
I have yet to see a single thing that would lower my cost from 2010, when this law is passed, and lower my cost from 2010 by $2,500. And now we're at 2016, and I think everybody agree it's gone way above that.
You take a person who had insurance, then they instituted the Affordable Care Act, their insurance rates went up, the deductible went up. How is that possible? Because the same person is no sicker necessarily. Assuming everything is static, the same person is no sicker than they were before. Why is their deductible going up to $6,000? I think ours is $6,000.
Maybe to pay for others that don't have the money to do that?
Just let him answer.
Not really. It has more to do with the federal government creating these 4 metallic levels of plans. So plans all have to meet very specific actuarial guidelines. So your bronze plan, which is going to be the least expensive, and most of us shop on this based on price, that least expensive has to fall within a certain range, and it's typically, realistically somewhere from $6,000 to $6,850 out of pocket. So just to go out and get the cheapest plan, your plan now has to be modified to fit that value. And then if you want, a copay plan, you're typically looking at anything from a $2,000 to a $6,000 deductible. Again, with at least a $6,000 out of pocket to meet the silver metallic guideline, which is the cheapest level you can get with a copay.
How is that affordable?
Right?
Well, hold that thought, Mr. O'Connell. Can you stick around for a second? We'll have you out by the end of the hour. Danny O'Connell is a health insurance expert. He's also a partner in the North Texas Insurance Group, I guess you'd call it. B as in boy, BRG, which oddly enough is at brg-tx.com. Our guest is Danny O'Connell. He is with the insurance firm B as in boy, R as in Robert, G as in G. I don't understand this Obamacare.
Danny, it's so funny. My mom is texting me. If she's listening right now, hey, Mom. She texts me. She goes, did he say that we'll have to pay back the subsidies to the government? So I'm going to have you answer.
Yeah. The first year, 50% of those who got a subsidy wound up owing it back. And the tough part is when you're filling that out and applying on the front end, you're estimating what your income is going to be for the year. And so that's what that estimate in your premium subsidy is for. So then at the end of the year, when you do your taxes and you figure out what you actually made, that's when people owed money back.
That's how they're getting it back. Okay. Am I right about that? That's how the government's getting it?
You are. I was going to finish the answer. Roxanne asked the question before the break, if that's okay.
Oh,
yeah, go for it.
So you were kind of asking, well, gosh, this doesn't sound affordable. Where's the savings? And, that's right. I was asked this weekend. I had a good conversation with somebody, and they said, well, do you believe in universal health care? I go, absolutely. I know that exists. Now, do you agree that the federal government is probably the least efficient operating entity in the country? I go, well, yeah, absolutely I do. So you're taking something that is still broken, and you're giving it to an entity that has the absolute worst track record of efficiency and making things better overall, and you're expecting it to be better. And we come back to that real division of we have this blurred line in our country. Health insurance premiums is not the cost of health care. When I go to pay a provider, I can pay, and that's my cost. You have the insurance there most times to protect you against something catastrophic, but that has gotten completely out of whack of where it is today. And I think everybody would agree that that needs to be reformed. But when you don't do anything to address the problem of all of these continued increases of providers, and it's more expensive to see a doctor, it's more expensive to go have a baby, how in the world would you expect your insurance premiums to go down when you haven't fixed the problem?
Is that because, and I have another question after this, is that because the impulse that made the Democratic Party, because this was a Democratic Party deal, good or for real, and it made Mr. Obama do this as his number one thing out of the box, forsaking every other thing he said he was going to do, because there's been a movement for universal health care, for nearly a century, and this was their opportunity, their golden opportunity, and they just couldn't not extend it to everybody. And they lost sight of the fact that maybe that wasn't the way to bring down healthcare costs?
I think somebody was looking for a signature bill that they could hang their legacy on. And there's nothing more evident than that, than Nancy Pelosi standing up and saying you have to pass it to see what's in it. If we're really looking out for the American public, this thing would have been debated and would have been open, and we could have input from everybody and really find a workable solution instead of people that really don't understand the system. And that's obvious because look what they gave us and look what's going on. If we understood the system, we wouldn't have these problems.
Sometimes what never leaves my head is, I forgot his name, but one of the writers saying that it'll pass because of the stupidity of the American people. Like, how condescending and rude and just mean. Yeah, something like that.
Right,
Gruber. Could you be? Like,
Gruber's
and for people to be so, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. And it gets me upset, Danny, whenever we hear the administration say, well, we have more people insured now, well, because we're kind of forced to do it,
There's a little condescending, because there has been evidence, I don't know if it's still around, that there was a case in California extending Medicaid to people who previously did not have it, and the health outcomes didn't go up. More people were covered, could go to the doctor, but they weren't any healthier. Now, I have to believe overall that would not be necessarily true, but just because you can go to the doctor doesn't mean you're going to do what he says, which was not accounted for.
Yeah, so you've got to change behaviors, but then can the people actually afford the treatment and the things that they need to do? Can they afford the medication?
Oh, no.
Can they afford the follow-up visits?
Now
I like
you're starting up things.
Right. Here in Dallas, you look at, individuals go to Parkland, to the county hospital. Giving them insurance is not going to change the behavior of them going to Parkland saying, I don't have insurance and not having to pay for anything. You're not going to get people to stop drinking and driving by making them have car insurance. You're not going to change the behavior.
Pastor O'Connell, I have one more question.
Pastor? Oh, I thought you did that on accident.
One more question. The legislation called for the insurance companies who are participating in this to be reimbursed for their losses. Is that true? Is that still in effect?
It was only temporary, and the funny thing is there's an article from 2015 mid-year that claimed that they had $800 million remaining in the reimbursement fund as of June of last year. However, when you look at these losses,
that'll cover United.
Blue Cross had $475 million just in the state of Texas last year. And where does all that money come from? It comes from taxes that all of us pay.
So the insurance companies, you can tell I don't hate insurance companies. I think that's for a different show. But they're the ones who decided to get in bed with all this. They're the ones who they make their own problems, in my opinion, at least sometimes. But they're the ones who got behind all this. And now I think they should stand the losses. I don't think we should have to reimburse them for their bad judgment.
I'm not a fan of reimbursing people either. However, when you set up specific constructs that people have to operate within, and they're playing the game that's put in front of them, and I'm by no means defending insurance companies, but they're forced to play a certain game. That game we all know is a losing game. There's no way anybody wins in this game. So if that's the game, then they're obviously going to see losses. The federal government anticipated these losses, otherwise they wouldn't have set this up to begin with.
Yeah.
And now, they're basically out of money, and this is only a temporary deal. You look at the co-ops. 8 of the 11 co-ops are expected to fold before the end of the year. The one in New York closed.
Hey, Danny O'Connell, we got to go, but I guarantee you we'll call you back.
Yes, sir, we will. Thank you, Danny.
That's right. Thank you very much. He is obviously a health insurance expert and a partner at the BRG firm. B as in boy, R as in Robert, G as in G. BRG in North Texas. You're listening to 710 KRV.